or ACDBE questions, that's actually a different workshop, but I can address some of them at the end of the workshop. I'm going to ask you to hold on to your questions until the end of the workshop, and then we can go through them. If you feel something is imperative that you ask, you know, please raise your hand and I'll try and answer it at that point. But because we're being run live right now and people can hear what I'm saying at least, we're asking that you hold your questions. So you're here today for the How to Become Certified with the City of Chicago workshop, MBE, WBE. The next slide is going to give you, all right, here we go. We're on the department overview. Who are we? We are the Department of Procurement Services, who is the contracting authority for the procurement of goods and services for the City of Chicago. We work together as a team and with our customers to guarantee an open, fair, and timely process by establishing, communicating, and enforcing superior business practices. What we do. DPS is committed to providing information, resources, and tools to assist you in your efforts to compete for City of Chicago contracting opportunities. The Department of Procurement Certification section accepts and reviews new applications for certification, annual no change affidavits, recertification applications every 5 years. I'm just going to talk about a little bit about the process and the certification application. Once a firm goes through the application process and they are certified for the 5-year period, you have a fiduciary responsibility to submit a no change affidavit online in the firm's account yearly. And at the end of the 5 years, you will, if you choose to remain in the program, you would need to, at that time, submit a recertification application. That's what you're looking at on the screen now, where we say new applications, which is what you're here for today, annual no change affidavits, which is what you'll be submitting on years. So year 1, you're doing the application. Year 2, 3, and 4, you're doing no change affidavits. Year 5, because it's a 5-year certification, you're submitting a recertification application. Who we are. We are the, well, did I go the wrong way? I sure did. All right. This goes back again to what the department does. We do contract compliance with negotiated contractual MWV DBE participation goals. We set standards for contract participation for MBE, WBE, and BBEs, as well as the DBE and the ACDBEs. We assist vendors through our websites. And I will, again, you're going to see MWDV. I will try and use the entire acronym so you get used to hearing these along the way. But if it's a little confusing, I can, again, elaborate on it at the end. Here we are, the City of Chicago certification programs, the MBE, the Minority-Owned Business Enterprise Program, the WBE, the Woman-Owned Business Enterprise Program, the VBE, the Veteran-Owned Business Enterprise Program, BEPD, Businesses Owned by People with Disabilities, DBE is an ACDBE, which is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and the Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise programs are both federal programs. And we're not actually talking about those applications today, but as I stated earlier, we can get into a little bit about it. Always think in terms of the M, W, V, and B are city, they're municipal. The D and the ACDBE are federal. The VBE, the Veteran-Owned Business Enterprise Program. Veteran means a person who has served in the United States Armed Forces and was discharged or separated under not dishonorable conditions. The applicant for VBE must provide a DD-214 and or a DD-215 as the supporting evidentiary documentation. This is a required document. There's nothing that can substitute this. If the vendor does not have their DD-214 or their DD-215, the applicant should contact the Veterans Administration or the VA. Again, the city, as you're seeing, has acronyms for everything. The veteran-owned business enterprise means an enterprise which is at least 51% owned by one or more veterans, or in the case of a publicly held corporation, at least 51% of all classes of the stock of which is owned by one or more veterans who manages or controls the management, policies, major decision, and daily business operations, and number 2, has been certified by the city as a veteran-owned small local business, certified by Cook County as a business enterprise, certified by the state of Illinois as a qualified service-disabled veteran-owned small business, or a qualified veteran-owned small business pursuant to 30 ILCS 500/45-57, or verified and approved by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business or a veteran-owned small business enterprise. That was a lot of information. I don't know if any of you are here seeking that certification. That's something, if we need to chat about that down the road, we can do that at the end. If it doesn't relate to a lot of the folks here today, we can, at the end, I can step to the side and we can discuss it one-on-one. The benefits of certification. It provides visibility. Once certified, your firm is listed in a directory which is accessible to the general public on the City of Chicago website. There are minority, woman, and veteran and disadvantaged business participation goals on the City of Chicago projects and with sister agencies. There are businesses in the private sector that seek out certified firms for products and or services. And I'm sure a number of you, because you're here seeking certification today, have heard someone say to you, is your firm certified? Well, the first question you need to ask them is, what certification are you asking me to have? I mean, the City of Chicago is wonderful if you are going to be utilized as a subcontractor to meet the compliance goals on a bid. And we say bid on the onset because until something has been awarded, it is only a bid. It doesn't get titled a contract. So if anybody's here and there's a firm or a large agency saying, do you have your certification? You really need to ask them, what certification are you looking for if that's your goal? Oops, that was too many. The benefits of certification are continued. The City of Chicago has a target market program which provides exclusive bidding to certified minority and woman-owned business enterprises. This allows certified businesses to take 100% of the contract because there are no subcontractor goals associated with the project. Does everybody here understand when I'm talking about subcontractor compliance goals, compliance plans, how exactly your certification could be utilized on what we call on the onset a bid, and ultimately the bid becomes awarded and goes to contract? Does anybody have a question about that maybe I can answer just as a little aside right now? We're good? All right. Do you qualify? The qualifying groups are African American, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, women, veteran, again, there were a lot of pre-qualifiers for veteran, persons with disability, and other individuals who can prove social and economic disadvantage. The firm needs to be a local business. The principal place of business and majority of full-time workforce for that firm need to be located in the counties of Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will. If you're seeking DBE and ACDBE, the firm can be located anywhere within the state of Illinois. Do you qualify? Is the firm that's coming in for certification 51% owned, controlled, and managed by a minority, a veteran, a woman, or persons with a disability, and or are they socially or economically disadvantaged individuals or an individual? MBE, WBE, VBE must be an established business. Gross receipts must not exceed 38.11 million averaged over 3 years for non-construction firms. Construction firms subject to the SBA size standards are averaged over 5 years. If any of you has a firm that is up in those numbers for your gross receipts over 3 or 5 years, you really don't need to be in the program because you're doing so well that this program is really created to assist grow small business enterprises, something where the small businesses can come into this program and be utilized as part of a larger contract with the city. The DBE must not exceed 23.98 million or the SBA size standard averaged over 3 years. The ACDBE not to exceed 56.42 million for most firms, and some exceptions do exist. The personal net worth standard, the MBE, WBE, VBE, the threshold only applies to construction companies, and it is currently at 2.23 million. This is evaluated annually by the city of Chicago. If your firm, as you sit here today, is looking for construction codes, those would be the NAICS codes that start with 236, 237, or 238. You are subject to completing a personal net worth statement and attaching that yearly, because we do review that. If your personal net worth exceeds the 2.23 million, you will not be allowed to be in the program. On the DBE, ACDBE side, the threshold applies to all people seeking certification and is currently at 1.32 million. This is adjusted periodically by the U.S. Department of Transportation. Now, this calculation of personal net worth excludes the value of your primary residence and interest in the certified firm. So your house won't add into what's considered your personal net worth, which is a blessing for many, because fortunately you've got a lovely home, but it doesn't get taken in this calculation. The online process, the electronic online application located at www.chicago.mwdbe.com. Paper applications are no longer accepted. There, you will be submitting a $250 application fee. This slide reads that you'll be sending it via money order or cashier's check, but the process now has changed a little. Once the application goes through an intake process and is in a kind of a cursory review, indicating that all of the appropriate documentation at this point is required, the system now, through our intake area, will issue or generate an invoice. With that invoice, you will be able to pay your application of $250. by either bringing it here. There are a number of other locations in the city, in the surrounding area, or you can still mail it. And at that point, it does have to be a money order, cashier's check, or certified check. And all the supporting documentation will need to be uploaded into that online application. Please don't send any information that you couldn't, in your mind, upload into that application. If you're having trouble at any point with this application online, you're always welcome to call us. And I didn't grab one up front, but there is a DPS alerts card. The DPS alerts card should have, here it is, it has our phone number, the 312-744-4900, and you will call into that number and you'll press number 1, and you'll get a friendly, helpful officer such as myself. We'll always be able to give you some guidance, you know, assist you with whatever your question or issue is at that moment. Thank you.
I have a question. So am I to understand that you can go to the website and submit all of the documentation and then like submit it, and then once it is tentatively approved or like all the documentation is there, then they'll ask you for the $250 payment?
Yes. The individual just asked if once all of the documentation is reviewed, is there an invoice basically issued, and is that when payment is made? And that is correct. That is the process currently in use.
So we're not sending like the payment in with the paperwork and we don't even have
Well,
everything else?
and she asked again, and I'm repeating because of people on watching this. She asked, so we don't send it with any paperwork. There is no paperwork to be sent in. You're going to submit everything online. Again, you're going to go to the chicago.mwdbe.com. You're going to create an account. With this account, you're going to upload all of the supporting documentation that's being requested and required with this application. Once the cursory review is done, intake will then issue an invoice to you at the email address that you have submitted on the application. What we need from you, contact information. Please be sure you give us a good number and a good email address that's really the firm's, so that you're checking it, I don't mean necessarily hourly, but so you're checking it at least a couple of times a day, a phone number that you can be reached at, that a message can be left at. A number of these applications that are coming in will require a site visit. Again, if it's construction, if it's trucking, if you're going to be a supplier, these automatically will have a site visit performed prior to the certification continuing along its review, and whether or not just the information that you're submitting with the initial application is all we're going to need or not, that's something that the reviewer, an officer such as myself, will decide down the road. So the types of certification you're going to need when you fill out the form, you're going to see boxes to check. If you qualify for more than one of these categories, one of these classifications, if you're a minority and you're a minority female, please check off MBE, WBE. If you're a minority female veteran, check off the 3. You know, whatever applies to you, please check off those appropriate boxes, because it's easier to do it up front prior to electronically signing and submitting than it is down the road. I mean, we can make that correction, but it's easier if it's done right on the onset. The ownership information. We're going to ask in the application, who are the owners? Who is the owner or who are the owners? We're going to ask for percentages. We're going to ask for employee information. Where is the business located? Financial information. Financial information will be a copy of the bank signature card. It will be a copy of perhaps the opening bank statement, especially if the business is relatively new, you'll still have that. If it's an older business, I'm just going to use 10 years, you may no longer be able to put your hands on that bank statement, but you're already established, so we may not need that initial bank statement. Licenses. If you're a City of Chicago specific business, you need to have a Chicago business license. If you have any questions today at the end of this, and if you're staying for the second workshop, you're welcome to go up to room 800 to talk to Business Affairs and Consumer Protection to see if in fact which license you qualify for. Now, if you're located outside of the Chicago proper area, your municipality may require that you have a business license or not. But once you have any and all licenses, please upload copies of those with this application. We're also going to need experience, your resume. I don't just want to know that you own this business and what you're doing in the business. I want to know what you did prior to this business. How did you get the expertise, or what gave you the desire to open this business? It's usually from whatever you did previously. You know, whether if you were in construction, if you worked for a construction company and said, well, I can do that, I can go out on my own. So now I have my own company. Your resume needs to reflect that. If there are any professional associations you're a part of, upload the information there. You may have some documentation, you may have a certificate, you may have a membership card. Take a copy. I have a question from the audience.
What happens if your previous corporate background doesn't match your entrepreneurial?
It isn't that we're looking to match. We're really looking to understand what powered you to go to start up this business. And if it's something that you can't put onto your resume, my best suggestion would be to write a short narrative. I've always had interest in doing commercial painting. You know, I love painting walls and doors and whatever, and this is why I've started up the business. But then you're also going to need to explain how you gained that expertise to start up that business. Where did you get the experience? How did you, not only how did you know what you wanted to do, but where did you get the background? So when we say a complete when I say a complete resume, a detailed resume, I'm basically saying, where did you get the expertise? What brought this about? I mean, we all have something we want to do in our lifetime. Isn't that called your bucket list? But does it relate to, or how does it relate to you starting up this business? Is this something that was something you wanted to do for a long time? You finally had the opportunity, and here you are. You've started up your business, and you're coming to get certified. Listing of equipment. I just talked about someone wanting to start up a painting company. Do I have ladders? Do I have buckets? Do I have a truck? That's equipment. We're going to ask for a list. The application is going to ask you for all of these things. The location you're in, again, is going to have a lease. If you're working from home, if it's a home occupation, then being that the office, if you're doing consulting, then you're going to provide us with a lease if you lease your apartment. If you own the condo, if you own the building, you're going to have a tax bill. You're going to have a mortgage statement. There's something that has to attach you to the location of the business, because we know you're not just standing on the street corner passing out flyers. You know, there's somewhere the business attaches to something. And where would we come to, if you don't tell us where the business is, how are we going to do a site visit? That's just not going to happen, and the certification isn't going to happen. Contract information. If the firm's established, and I say established, has the firm been in business for more than 6 months? Hopefully you have had a contract, have done some invoices, it's done some invoicing, done some work. If you have contracts, the firm has been in business, and you have something for the past 2 years, give us at least 2 or 3 of your major contracts. When I say major, I'm not asking for multi-million-dollar contracts. They may have only been, depending on your specialty area, something that was for a few hundred or a few thousand. But all of this information that we're asking for, the contracts over the last 2 years, invoices, purchase orders. This all lends itself to the validity of your firm. This lends itself to, I'm a business, whether I'm new or I've been in business for a period of time. This is what I do. I've done the work. I've been paid for the work. These are all things that are going to be asked for in the application. The other thing I say to any of you who are starting up a business, as you're getting payments, as you're receiving checks as payments for the services or products you're providing or selling, please take a copy of those checks so that ultimately you can match up the invoice that you sent to that customer with their payment. This again lends itself to validity. This is what we as certification officers look for. The types of businesses that qualify: a sole proprietor. This is typically a business owned by only one person, has no legal existence apart from the person, him or herself. These types of businesses need to submit an assumed name certificate if they're operating in a name other than the owner. If I'm operating a consulting business and it's Sonia Larkin, not Sonia Larkin Limited, but just Sonia Larkin, when I get a check from the people I'm consulting for, it's made out to Sonia Larkin. I'm going to invoice them. I'm going to get a check. I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to put that on my tax return, on my personal, individual, federal tax return. I don't need an assumed name certificate. Now, if I want to be Sonia's Special Painting, and I'm a sole proprietor, I then need to have an assumed name certificate which is registered with Cook County. A general partnership. A general partnership is 2 or more people who go into business together without any formalities, but they usually have a partnership agreement. There is something written and signed by the partners of the business. A limited partnership. The limited partners are more like stakeholders in a corporation. They are not liable for the debts beyond their own contribution. Assumed name certification or a certificate of limited partnership is what they would normally have signed and agreed to under this type of business. A corporation. A corporation is treated as an entity completely separate from its shareholders. It allows others to invest in the business without being liable for the debts of that business. Is the firm in good standing with the state? Have you submitted a copy of the Articles of Incorporation, Certificate of Incorporation, bylaws of the corporation, given me or uploaded with the application copies of all stock certificates issued front and back, and meeting minutes? And again, with a corporation, meeting minutes are board meeting minutes, which you are required to do as a corporation yearly. And these become part of your corporate book or your corporate binder. A limited liability company, or LLC, are partnerships that have a managing member, partner, or partners, and they have an operating agreement. The operating agreement will normally say if there's more than one individual in the LLC, that will give the indication of who are the members, but who is the managing member. And as officers and in the review of the documents that you're submitting, that's something that we will review. Suppliers. Is anyone here applying or supplying products?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to read this and then we're going to talk about this for a minute. So a supplier must be a regular dealer, which is a firm that owns, operates, or maintains a store, warehouse, or other establishment in which materials, supplies, articles, or equipment are bought, kept in stock, and regularly sold or leased to the public in the usual course of business. Now tell me what your firm is going to supply.
Toilet tissue and paper products.
So the firm, this is a new firm, this is a new firm that's going to be a supplier of paper goods. Let's just use the phrase paper goods. Now you have your supplies in a warehouse? Are you pulling from your own stock?
Yes.
But you have, when you fill out this application as a supplier, you have your business office, but you also have a warehouse situation where these supplies, these paper goods are coming out of?
No, it's all in one location.
Well, it's all in one location, but it's still a location big enough where, again, a supplier, someone will go out and do a site visit and they'll say she had so many skids of copy paper or so many skids of toilet paper. Let's just use those. And that sounds like it sounds like a firm that's certifiable. Now let me go on with this. Distributors. We have a suppliers distributor broker policy, which none of you, obviously this young lady will be interested in reading that down the road, but it really, I'll go through this as quickly as I can. Distributors are firms operating as a distributor are identified as having a direct relationship with a manufacturer to distribute its goods and products within a specified territory or region. The goods and or products are not available or sold to the general public. And when I talk about distributors, 99% of the time, you will have a distributor's agreement with that manufacturer. When somebody comes to me and says, well, I'm a distributor for X, but I don't have an agreement, we need to dig a little deeper. You're really not distributing, you're really kind of selling a product, perhaps, and that brings us to brokers. Firms acting as a broker are not eligible for certification as an MBE, WBE, VBE, or BEPD. A person or entity that fills orders by purchasing or receiving supplies from a third-party supplier rather than out of its own existing inventory and provides no substantial service other than acting as a conduit between his or her supplier and his or her customer is a broker. For the MWV and BEPD programs, the City of Chicago will not certify a broker. So if you're not pulling from your own stock, those are certifications you cannot apply for, or you should not, because you'll be denied, and we'll do everything we can not to take in an application, take your money, and then tell you you can't be certified, which is obviously why everyone's here today. You want to make sure that when you leave this workshop today, the majority of your questions have been answered. If I can't answer them during the course of these next, let's call it 20 minutes while we're in this workshop, I'll stay after and we can talk about specific questions that you have or issues after applications are submitted. The process can take approximately 60 to 90 days to 120 days from the day we receive all the documentation. An application is submitted, it goes through the intake process, the invoice is generated, you pay the application fee, it then is assigned to an officer, let's say such as myself. I then go through another review, a little more in-depth review, because now I'm trying to get information about your business. I need to know things about you. I will probably send you a request for information. We call that an RFI. We'll send you RFI 1, RFI 2. We'll send you as many RFIs as we can until we get the whole story about your business and all the documentation you need. This won't go on open-endedly. We try to do no more than 3 RFIs, which gives you a 15-day window for the MBE, WBE, a 10-day window to get these docs in, and then a 5-day window. So that within 30 days of we start to review this and the first RFI goes out, we've gotten the majority of information from you. That's not written in stone. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen that way. You may say, I'm going to be out of town for 10 days. Can I have an extension? Of course, we're going to say you can have an extension. I mean, if this has been going on open-ended for an excessive period of time, we won't do that. But, you know, when I say 30 days, it doesn't mean everything. There is some wiggle room in this. The process takes 60 to 90 days. Documents, as you keep hearing me say, are thoroughly audited. You may receive a site visit. Trucking, construction, supplier, absolutely. If you're an architectural firm, possibly, possibly not, depends. Again, it's specific to what NAICS codes the firm is looking for. If approved, an MBE, WBE, BBE, or BEPD, your certification is valid for 5 years. And I started out this workshop by talking about the 5-year certification. The expedited process. Are any of you currently certified by Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council or Women in Business Development Center? Which of this? WBDC. So you are eligible, and your certification with them is current. You're eligible to submit an outside application. This is currently, although it's in process to be put online, the only paper application that we, as the City of Chicago Certification, will accept in hard copy. There, the check is not, there is no invoice generated. You would provide the check at the time you provide us with the hard copy application. This is, although they talk about it as expedited, I don't want anybody to get nervous thinking, well, she's going to jump in front of everybody in line. She isn't. What happens is it's really not expedited, it's abbreviated. The documentation that she is going to be submitting on the onset is a lesser amount of paper required. The reviewer may decide that, again, not knowing what your specialty area is or what the firm does, the reviewer may decide that they need that additional information. We will go out to you with a request for additional information and ask for whatever we need. If there is a site visit done by WBDC, we will request that site visit of them. If we need to do a site visit, we will do that also. So those are, when you see expedited, it's really abbreviated. It's a little less documentation. The cost is the same. Ultimately, the process takes approximately the same amount of time. Maintaining certification. All vendors must submit an annual no change affidavit. You must notify the Certification and Compliance Division regarding organizational changes, business name changes, and ownership changes within 10 business days of the change. You're hearing this here. If and when you get certified, you will read that and you will see that in your letter. That is a responsibility that you have. If there's a change in ownership, if you move, whatever is what we call a material change, you need to let us know within 10 days. I mean, if it's 2 weeks, we won't, there's no penalty, but don't let it go on for 2 months. All MWVB vendors must recertify every 4 years. The recertification application, although it's involved, is not as involved as the initial application, but there still is a number of documents that are required, and that's the every 5th year. So again, on year 1, you're certified. Year 2, 3, and 4, you do a no change affidavit. The no change affidavit will, depending, and it's specific to if it's construction or non-construction, is an online form. You will let us know what the most current year of gross receipts are. It's 5 years for construction, 3 years for non-construction. If it's construction, there'll be a personal net worth statement that will be uploaded. Non-construction does not require that documentation. There's a little difference, but you're only going to care about what your firm does. Expansion of services. Down the road, you're certified. Sonia's painting company does paint and wallpaper. I now want to do some carpentry because I've got employees and I know how to do it. So I now want to add framing to my certification, to my specialty areas. I can submit that request on company letterhead. It's in your account. There's an area, we would walk you to that point if you can't locate it. It's called to request, it's where it says you want to report a material change. You'll put down a narrative about what it is that you are seeking, what your company is now doing that's different than what you did on the onset of this certification. You're going to include the NAICS codes. If there's any new licensure that's required, you're going to give us copies of the licenses. You're going to provide us with any contracts where you've performed services or provided products. You're going to, if insurance is required, and you're going to provide us with an updated resume, which tells us basically how you got the experience. How did I get the experience to now do framing? Well, I probably got it on the job, because as my painters and I were painting, and I'm running the day-to-day operation, so I'm a hands-on manager, I'm going to see how that's done. And by seeing, we learn. So I'm going to add that into my original resume, which was submitted with the application. I'm not going to update that resume. Your resume goes on with you forever. You know, and I say that having many decades in the, you know, in the workforce. You always have a resume on hand. We have sister agencies. You can see these online. You don't need to, I think you have it on the handout you have. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, back on the previous slide, if you needed to update or expand your services, I didn't know if there is a fee to add or expand or change.
Is there a fee for expansion of services? No. The fees are the initial application and the recertification, and both of those are currently $250 in the form of a cashier's check, a certified check, or a money order. We will never accept a personal check. We certainly won't take cash, and we don't want a corporate check. So you'll go either to a currency exchange or a bank and get a money order or a cashier's check, whatever works for you. Avoid the 10 reasons applications are denied. I know I'm running out of time here, so I'll just go through these and we can talk about them after the fact. Unsubstantiated or questionable ownership or control. Unclear description of the critical functions and who is responsible. The company cannot substantiate where startup funds or expansion capital came from. Outside secondary employment takes the majority of the BEPD enterprise's time each day. The company is not located in one of the 6 regions, which doesn't make them a local business, which is outside of our program. The point of contact did not respond to requests for information in a timely manner. Make sure that whatever you're giving me are really good email addresses. The email address of the firm. A cell phone where you can be reached and I can leave a message. Inconsistencies with the applicant firm name among various documents. We frequently see where Sonia Painting Services can have one invoice as Sonia Painting and the other one could be Sonia Styling Services. And we as reviewers are going to say, are these 2 different firms? We will see that. We touch every piece of paper even though it's uploaded. Problems with contracts. Missing, incomplete, not signed or executed by qualifying owners or have no corresponding proof of payments. I said take a copy of the check when you get it, at least on the onset of the business. Required documents are not attached or no explanation is given as to why the documents are not available. 3 or 5 years of tax returns were not submitted and signed as required. So the majority of us we're about to file our taxes. We sign our tax returns, but we never take a copy of the tax return that's signed. We just plop it in the mail or we do it electronically and off it goes. What we're going to have you do is when you are submitting your tax returns for this application, if you already have a scanned copy, we're going to ask you to print that, at least front page where the signature is required. We're going to have you sign that and we're going to have you rescan that and upload it with. That's a requirement. Where to go for help. You have the DPS alerts cards. I've talked about 312-744-4900. Press the number 1 for certification. An officer such as myself, always friendly and willing to help you, would be glad to pick up that call. If there's no one available, which does happen on occasion, there is a general voicemail that you can leave a message in, and guess who gets to pick those up? So you'll get to talk to me because I answer those currently. So there is a way that you can reach us even if an officer does not respond immediately, and we call you back as quickly as we can. And again, quickly is, I've picked up phone calls from 4 o'clock in the morning, midnight. People have a question, they're going to call in to the 4900, press the number 1, leave the message and ask for an officer to call them back, and we do. Questions? Do I have any questions at this point?
I have a question. Sorry. I'm currently a home-based business, and I know you spoke about leases. When you come out, sorry.
It's okay.
When you come out to do the site inspection, what are you looking for?
Well, tell me what the business does.
Sorry. I create natural skincare products.
So we're going to, first of all, you're doing this as a home-based business in the city of Chicago?
Yes.
So you would need a city of Chicago license.
Mm-hmm.
You would need, because you're creating product, there are other licenses that you're going to be required, not only by the city, but by the state.
Okay.
We would be looking for, in the initial application, we would be looking for licenses regarding the safety precautions you're taking through perhaps the Department of Health. This is when I say, everybody who has a question about the license you may need, please go upstairs to room 800 and ask the question. You're here. You're here today. It's a few moments of your time. There's rarely a line that's so long that you're going to hate to stand in it. You know, they get you very quickly or send you on to the agency or the appropriate individual. In terms of you creating product, we're going to look at what you're using as equipment, you know, how you're doing this, what you're producing, how you're distributing. We're going to look at the whole picture. Would I tell you someone would come out for yours? Yes. I would tell you somebody would come out to your home-based business.
Okay.
Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I have two. I have a security company, armed and unarmed, and I also have a handyman services company. So with my handyman services company, would I myself need to be certified or licensed if I have other individuals that work for me?
Well, again, which company is going to be certified?
I'm trying to certify both
Okay,
companies.
the first question an officer is going to have is, how are you running 2 full-time businesses at the same time? I'm just giving you the question that's going to come out. So, you know, once you've jumped that hurdle and explained how you're doing these types of things, how did you acquire the expertise to run the handyman business?
I'm a property owner, and the maintenance guys that work for me, I take on small jobs.
Okay, so that's going to be indicated in your resume. You're going to write a narrative. You're going to tell us how you do that. But if somebody didn't show up that day, and I'm not talking about lifting, if you were a landscaper, you know, unloading a truck of sod, but you would know how to do those tasks without them. You would know how to direct. You would understand what it is that they're doing.
Yes.
Then you're going to write that in the application.
Because it's kind of like you said, I like learn hands-on, like
That's what you're going
like
to
how to put a floor down,
That's
like
what
where
you're
you
going to
start
tell
with
us.
the tiles to put them
That's
out.
what you're going to tell us.
And as far as the security company, how
You
would
would
that
have
work?
specific licensure from the state of Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
You would probably have taken classes.
Yes, the 20-hour unarmed and the 40-hour for
Well,
armed.
you've answered your own questions. You're going to provide us with all this information and documentation. Having said that, that's where it shows in your resume. You're submitting applications for 2 different companies, but you're going to be submitting the same resume. We don't want to see a resume that says, I never did any of this, or I never did any of that in my previous experience.
So 2 applications, 1 resume, so and it's $250 per application.
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, we have a gentleman in the back.
How do we know of certified businesses? Is this the website address here? cityofchicago.org/procurement in Chicago?
When you say to look up
Yes.
certified firms,
Yes.
you would go to the Department of Procurement Services homepage. It's www.cityofchicago.org/procurement, PROCUREMENT. You will see on that homepage, there are a number of icons in the middle section. The second row, the one on the left in the second row in the middle set, has MW directory.
Okay.
You would click on that. You would see
Okay.
an area where you could fill in a name if you're looking for a specific company to see if in fact they're certified. If you're looking for a specific specialty area, painting, it's the second one on that second open page. You'd put in the specialty area, you go to the bottom, you click on search. Toward the bottom of the next page that came up, you would see a listing of all the firms that are currently certified as MWV, as MW&V, that would be listed at the bottom. You'll see their certification type in parentheses. If you wish to look at the information on that company, where they're located, what types of painting they do, you would click on the acronym in the parentheses. That would lead you to another window that opens up that would give you that information.
If you are a non-certified corporate entity, what is the process to meet the MWV requirement for city bids?
Anyone can submit a bid.
Okay.
There is no limitation on who can, if you can satisfy the requirements of the bid that goes out, and I believe Millie talked about signing up for DPS alerts, so, except target market, so that you can, in fact, get a copy of it comes out every Monday afternoon, I believe, and it's going to tell you what's going out on the street for bid is the phrase we use in contracting. And you could see if there's anything there that if you had a business and you said, well, I can supply these products and services because I'm large enough. I have X number of employees and I can do this and this and this. Anyone is welcome to bid. And that is also an online process.
But by nature, all of these City of Chicago bids do have a M, W, or V requirement, correct?
The majority do. I'm not going to tell you because I'm not
Yep.
on the contracting side anymore.
Yep.
I don't know what the percentage is, but the majority do have what we call a compliance plan.
Okay.
That's the requirement, and I believe right now it's 26 and 6, 26 MBE, 6 WBE, and the VBE is a variable right now. That's
What does
somewhat
that mean, 26 and 6?
26% of that contract will be subcontracted by you, the prime, as part of your compliance
Got it.
requirement.
Okay. And is that the standard for almost all the city bids?
I don't like to use the phrase
Okay.
standard. That's what I'm seeing or what I'm hearing is being done now. Again, it varies. It's variable. It would be specified in the bid that goes out. So there's no way I can tell you absolutely it's going to be
Okay.
26 and 6. I'm going to tell you it's probably not going to be less than 26 and 6, but I don't know. You know, is it going to be a single source bid until that bid goes out on the street? We really never know.
Yeah. Okay. So, in other words, a non-certified corporate entity can participate in these City of Chicago bids, correct? However, we need to,
Submit a bid.
yes, submit a bid. However, to meet some of these requirements, we would have to find a certified partner to subcontract to that would meet a threshold of 26% and or 6% or whatever
Well, again,
percent.
you're making it sound like it's an option. The prime goes in, you being the prime, non-certified firm, and your compliance plan requires a 26 and 6. If you don't have any knowledge of certified firms that could be utilized, you would go to the directory and you would
Okay.
see, you could interview, however,
Got
you
it.
know, whatever you're comfortable
Okay,
with.
yep.
But if there's a requirement,
Yep.
yes, you're going to be required to be.
But the subcontractor would have to be on the certified list that you just mentioned, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
And it could also be they could also be certified by Cook County. It is reciprocal.
Okay.
We do have reciprocity with the county certified firms
Yep.
currently.
For M&W only.
Correct. Thank you.
M&W only, okay.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, hold on a second. Because we're live on YouTube, we want to make sure you guys are also heard.
Say if you have like a mentoring program, like through the schools or something, and you're a vendor, like through CPS, can that be a minority business certified?
We're going to we'll talk about that after this workshop is over. There is a mentor protege program, but that's going to require additional information that you have to give me so that I can respond appropriately.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
We have one more. And this will be our last question.
Okay. But I can stay after if we have other questions or concerns.
Yes, hello. I'd like to ask, is the certification through the state? If you're certified through the state, would the city accept that?
No. The city and state, there's no reciprocity between the State of Illinois CMS, Central Management Service certification for a minority-owned business or a female-owned business enterprise and the City of Chicago MW program.
Well, where are the applications for a company to become certified if they were certified years and years ago?
With the city?
Well, they had a contract with the Daily Center, what at that time was the Civic Center, and they had it for 22 years. And they were certified then, and they can't find the records. So
It's going to be a new application, and if you're talking about being certified by the City of Chicago,
Correct.
then that's an online application. It comes in as a new application. You would provide us with all of the required documentation, ultimately the application fee, and everything would be reviewed with a fresh eye.
and how long does that take?
You missed the majority of the
I'm
workshop.
sorry.
That's okay. It could take, from the time we gather, again, everyone's heard me say this, from the time we gather all the information, it could take anywhere between 60 and 120 days.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Go for help. Am I going the wrong way? Of course. Questions? Thank you so much for coming to the workshop today. You all have my name. You have our phone number for the Department of Procurement Services. As you're going through the application and you have a question, please pick up the phone, call us. We'll be able to help you.